Started North and Central. How
Yeah.
fiercely loyal the players and the staff are to Zuma West.
And then next to me is the legendary. Can I say legendary?
I do go by the legend.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave Wiggins with the YBMcast Baseball 101 segment. Today we are here with head coach at Troy-Buchanan High School, Joel Krato. Excited to bring Joel on here. He's got some pretty innovative and I wouldn't necessarily say different, but I would say effective ways to elevate a team's offense, to help create offense with maybe not the greatest personnel of hitters or much firepower, but just ways to go about generating an offense with a high school baseball team or even a youth baseball team without necessarily slugging or having to swing the bat. So wanted to bring him on and just kind of talk with him about different techniques and tactics that he employs to help his team score runs, even if he doesn't have the those mainstay hitters that everybody wants. So Joel, how you doing?
Not too bad. It's good to be on the other side of a podcast.
I bet this is a first for me hosting. So you know, I will do my best to ask you as many thought provoking questions as I can. But don't feel free or don't feel shy. Just kind of jump right in and say what you got to say if anything kind of comes to mind. Sound good?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. We were kind of thinking of ideas for our first baseball 101 that I'm hosting. And, my thought was after having some good conversations with Joel over the last couple months, and knowing kind of what you are coming from and what you're coming to, significantly different
Huge.
philosophies, thoughts. Tell us about it. Tell us about where you were and tell us about where you're headed or where you are.
So any of you that watched the YBM Baseball 101 when they talked about who took over the new Troy baseball program, they originally had no idea who I was or what I was or where Community R6 was. But Community R6 is where I was at. It's a school of about 85 kids in the high school. So right now I'm at Troy, and we have like 100-something teachers just in the 10 through 12 building. So I'm currently working at a building that has more high school teachers than I was working at previously that had high school students. And so I went to Community R6 right out of college. I wanted to be a head baseball coach. Applied a lot of places, and Community R6 was the only one that would give me an opportunity. If you don't know where it's at, on a map, it's by Mexico, Missouri. It's about 10 minutes east of that. But if you were just trying to find it, I would suggest find like a farm field and just keep wandering until you find a building. When you find the building, that is where the high school is at. The building's K through 12. So a lot of the kids we had that played baseball had never had any really baseball experience. There were kids that maybe played some like rec ball, but not like your traditional rec ball out here, like in St. Charles County. It was kind of like, we're trying to get 12 kids to play baseball together. So we're taking third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, and meshing them into a team that we could find in the community that would be enough kids, and then like shipping them out to go play the other local schools that are doing the same thing. So baseball knowledge was very, very, very limited. And we ended up having some success there. We did some unique things out of the box to try to get the most out of them. And I guess that's why I'm here to talk about some of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Um, given the personnel you had, you like you said, you didn't have a lot of kids that played summer ball or even played competitive ball up until they got to high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that it's somewhat of a daunting task coming in and thinking, okay, how am I gonna go out here and be competitive and not really have the baseball acumen on my team or even the baseball experience um, to even win a varsity baseball game. No matter how small the school is, you're still going to run into teams. You're still going to run into or players that are playing at a higher level that have played baseball
Absolutely.
competitively. How do you take a young man, as a freshman in high school, new to your program? You watch him in the cage, and there's a couple things you like. You like his athleticism. You like you like the idea he has when it comes to swinging the bat. How do you help make him a class one varsity hitter? Say you see him in January, and then he's got to go compete in March or April at the varsity level as a freshman. What are some things you can do that can help get him ready for that?
So a couple of things, people listening that have no idea what Class 1 baseball is like. Let me give you an example. The team that won the Class 1 state title last year played Francis Howell and Staley in the Columbia tournament. And I think they played them both the 7 innings somewhat competitively. So like Class 1 baseball has some dudes. There's a kid that went to Mizzou from Class 1. You know, we've played kids that have gone and played Division 2. The difference is every team will have a dude. It's just how many dudes do you have behind that one dude. So typically that kid's throwing every other game for them because they play 2 games a week because they don't have a plethora of pitching staff. So like if you're any decent, you're seeing a collegiate level arm every game. So you're trying to do that with guys who have played very limited baseball. My first year there, I took a very generic, basic approach that I'm sure a lot of coaches, especially when they start out, we got to, perfect the swing mechanically. We're trying to do certain things. We're hitting off the tee. We didn't even have really any tees, so we were using traffic cones and putting the ball on top of a traffic cone. I'm sure nobody's ever done that before, but that's what we were doing. But what would happen, especially my first year, is we would get better with the swing mechanics and kind of understanding of how the movement is. But then we would see an actual pitcher throwing, and this is going to shock people, 75 miles an hour, and we couldn't catch up to it. So then I would ride the bus back home after the game, and I'd be infuriated of, I've gotten to the point after about my second year of, I don't care how our swings look anymore. If we can't hit 75 miles an hour, it's irrelevant. Like if we can't hit the fastball down the middle when it's not even like overpowering like 90 miles an hour, then the swing mechanics is irrelevant. We need to find a more effective way to get these kids ready to compete at the varsity level. And so that's where we made some changes. We stopped using the cage at practice. We stopped using tees at practice. The only hitting we did at practice was off a machine. We did it on the field when we competed at the end of practice. That was the only offensive stuff that we did. There's some other things we did that I'm sure we'll get into, but we just took the cage out of it and we attacked the weight room, and we can get more into that. But there's the school bell, one of our 12 lunches I think we have. But yeah, we just eliminated all that stuff, and we said we're going to figure out how to compete in the box, and we're going to figure out how to hit 75 plus miles an hour. And if we can do that, we'll be in a better shape to compete.
That's awesome. I mean, how many times you see a kid in the cage, you're throwing BP, or he's even hitting off the machine, and he takes a second because he's struggling, and he wants to ask you, "How's my swing look?" Or "Hey,
Oh,
how are my what are my hands doing?" And it's like, dude, none of that matters.
if you can't be on time, it doesn't matter. If you're
Right?
watching strike one and strike two go down the middle, it doesn't matter. One of the biggest differences, I've been able to coach some club ball out there, and in high school ball, it got to the points where the philosophy we were teaching was, am I early or late, and then what's the adjustment I need to make if that's the case. We didn't worry about hands, shoulder tilt, bat plane. It was, are you early or are you on time? And if it hits the end cap, you're early. If it hits your hands, you're late. But then I'd get into summer ball, and kids would be like, "Man, is my hands dipping? Is this? It's that?" No, it's because you got blown by 78 miles an hour. That's why you struck out. Oh, and it's like it's so much different where I was at because nobody had hitting instructors, right? It was like a pure mind that they didn't have any other schema. One of those teaching words you learn in college, schema of background knowledge, to where it's like whatever I said was all they knew. And then you coach in summer ball, and they have like, my hitting instructor says this, my catching instructor says this, and this guy says this, and those are all great things. But at the end of the day, you struck out because you were late, or you struck out because you swung at a pitch in the dirt. It has nothing to do with anything mechanically.
Have you run into the type of hitter that just seems to be late, whether it's 65, 70, 75, or 85? Have you run into the hitter that just for whatever reason cannot catch the baseball out front? And if you have, instead of using terms like early and late, have you gone with a different approach?
We would put a baseball out in front of them and say, you need to hit it when the ball's over top of this baseball. And kids usually figure it out like, okay, this is where I'm trying to make contact. Um, that was one thing. We would go two strike approach, like from the get go. Like, you're not very good at the plate. So we're just going to go two strike, and hopefully that helps get them more out front. Um, those are two of the things that we would use the most just in practice. But for the most part, like not really. I wouldn't say that we've had a lot of kids just get late, because it was always get your foot down sooner, get your foot down sooner, get your foot down sooner, make the decision to swing sooner. I think so many times kids, when they're late, they think they need to swing faster. It's like, no, it's not that. It's you either need to make contact out earlier, which means you need to get the swing going earlier, or you need to make another adjustment. It's not swing harder. That just causes more chaos.
Yeah, I've found, some kids when they're late in the cage or even when they're late in the game, when you get them one on one, and I will just slowly bring a baseball towards them and have them get to their ideal or optimal contact point. And I found a lot of times their ideal contact point is too deep. So they may not be late in their head, but they're late because their ideal point of contact is too deep. So they're getting to what they believe to be on time. However, on time for them is too deep. So it gives the effect that they're late. And
Here's a
I've just
here's
found
a
that,
little story for you. I got a funny story
yeah,
for you. So in high school, I don't think I ever pulled a ball. Actually, I take it back. I pulled one ball in my life in my high school career, and it was on a hit and run. And the only reason I pulled it is because I knew on a hit and run I couldn't swing and miss, so I better make contact. So I got the bat head way out front. It was the only ball I pulled. I almost hit it out. My only almost home run in a high school game. But then as I got older, I started to realize the reason I'm late all the time is because the terminology that was being given to me, let the ball get deep, let the ball get deep, let the ball get deep. No one ever taught me like where's the ideal plane to hit a ball up the middle or pull side. Like, sure, you want the opportunity to hit the ball the other way, but what are you gonna do with a fastball in on your hands? You're gonna try to slap it the other way as a 15-year-old kid? Like how good is that gonna work out for you? But it's funny, the terminology, if someone would have just said, no, you want to catch it out here rather than let it get deep, let it get deep, let it get deep. I'm just fisting myself on every pitch.
absolutely. And that's the culprit of that's the hit and run, right? Because it's like, well, on a hit and run, you got to hit the ball backside, you got to hit it on the ground. I cannot hit an inside fastball hard on the backside on the ground. I'm way better off trying to pull that down the third base line. It's just as effective of a hit and run, and probably more effective. And the chances of me popping the baseball up trying to catch it deep on an inside pitch on a hit and run are very high. So my thought is I'm right there with you, right? Let it travel, hit it hard the other way if it's middle away on a hit and run. But if you're hit and run and you get that inside fastball or inside whatever, you've got to get the bat head out front. You got pulling the baseball's okay. I kids need to hear that. Pulling the baseball's
Yeah.
okay. There's just as many hits in left center and left field as there are in right center and right field. And it's almost like hitters get praised for not making contact out front because that's what the coach wants them to subscribe to. That might not have even been trying to hit the ball the other way. But he hit a 15 hopper the other way, and that runner from second scored. That kid wasn't trying to do that. You should be going up there trying to do damage. But we as coaches often praise poor contact because it fits our situation of what we want. And I think that's tough for a lot of hitters, especially young hitters, to wrap their heads around. What is my approach here? Um,
Let, let me
so
ask you this question. If
yeah,
pulling the ball is so bad, why'd they have to ban the shift in the MLB baseball?
it's
If
an
if, if pulling
outstanding.
the ball does not work at the highest level, then why did they have to eliminate the shift? Because so many guys at the highest level of baseball that have dominated high school, college, minor league baseball still pull the ball a ton and have a lot of success.
It's outstanding, and in my opinion, after talking with college coaches and some scouts, one of the requisites to playing at the next level as a hitter, you have to pull the baseball in the air. You can't just hit the ball in the air the other way. Those guys get beat when they face real pitch. You have to prove that you can put the ball in the air with backspin. And it's getting coached out of our kids left and right. And sometimes it's hard to watch. Yes, are there kids that need to work on catching the ball deeper because they're way too out front or their trunks rotating too far and they're not staying on their line? Sure. But telling one of your hitters, "Hey, let's hop in the cage and work on hitting the ball the other way," it's a recipe for getting your guys blown up when they face a real arm. And I
Correct.
100% believe that.
Also, you're just eliminating the athleticism out of the kid. How many kids just have
Yes.
impeccable bat speed? And sure, maybe they need to stay back longer, but like just to eliminate half the field, like man, hit the ball the other way, hit the ball the other way, hit the ball the other way. How about just hit the ball hard? That became so when I
Yes.
first took community number six, the flop, like right, I'm trying to do all these things because that's what like you're supposed to do. And then I just was like, I'm tired of losing, so I'm just gonna start doing things that I think that I work best at our level right now. Just hit the ball hard. I don't care if you hit it in the air. I don't care if you hit it in the ground. If you hit the ball in the barrel, I guarantee you will get more hits than not hits.
Yep.
Like,
So,
just
no,
take away thinking. Take away thinking. Just hit the ball hard.
right. In terms of, like you said, kids will try when they face a faster arm, they'll try to swing harder, or they'll try to swing faster, or they'll try to match velocity with bat speed. The biggest thing that we want to make sure that hitters are understanding when they're facing a higher velocity arm, and even hitters that just aren't quite ever on time and are just late. The earlier and the slower you start your swing, the better off you are. I see so many kids hop in the machine, or they hop against a tough arm, and they want to load fast, or they want to get their foot down super early and then they get stuck. It's just hitting requires movement, it requires flow, and the best hitters in the world, the best high school hitters, they initiate their load early, they initiate their load slowly, and they stay moving as they're launching their swing. And that's something we found really, really helps our hitters at every level, youth, high school, college, um, is moving early and slowly and getting ourselves ready to hit while still moving versus moving fast, loading fast, getting the foot down early versus moving slow and early allows the foot to get down on time, which I believe is way more effective than getting it down early because then I'm stuck. So that's something we found really helps. I know I guarantee that's that's what you're telling your guys as well. But just something for the public there is if you're working with hitters, get them moving early, get them comfortable moving early, get them comfortable moving slowly. We want the quickness to occur when they launch, not when they start their load. That's something that our hitting guys over here at RBC are big on, is getting our guys to move as early as possible and as slowly as possible. And that takes a controlled load. That takes balance. That takes athleticism. That takes practice. So that's just kind of a PSA there. um,
Yeah.
let's talk the one of the favorite topics for some of these coaches on these podcasts. Let's talk bunting for a minute.
Ooh.
Explain to me how you employ bunting to help generate offense.
So we got some unorthodox thoughts here that'll definitely be different than the norm. But again, when you're at the Class 1 level and you're playing teams like Cairo, Morgan, shout out, or you're playing like a school like New Franklin, you're playing teams that have dudes. When we played, and just to give you another example of what Class 1 baseball was like, when we went and played Cairo, who's a conference school, which is by Moberly, they had 7 kids, I think, that played collegiate baseball on their roster. Like guys who actually like pitch at UCM, pitch at Missouri Southern, was the DH at Central Methodist and MACC, like dudes. And I'm going out there with kids throwing 62 miles an hour. Kind of like, how do you compete? How do you catch up? Right. And so you're trying to microwave, and not necessarily take shortcuts, but you're trying to get to where they're at and trying to do it in less time. Because I've only got kids, for X amount of time, and they got kids playing youth ball. So they're starting at a different level. How do we catch up? So when I was younger, I was really like anxious to try to like bunt or squeeze because I thought kids might get upset. Like, man, you're just taking the bat out of my hands. And then as I got older and you just get more comfortable, I guess you kind of also get more grouchy. But you just start to learn, like, I really don't care if you like it or not. We're playing to win. And so this gives us the best opportunity to win. And if you want to play, this is what the decisions are going to be made. So you have to break it down in multiple different canals or pathways. Like, okay, like when should you bunt? When would you bunt? How would you design a lineup to create the most offense with bunting? So one of the things that we looked at, you get about 1 to 2 kids who swing it pretty well on a team in Class 1. So where do you bat that kid? How do you get the most kids in running scoring position for him prior to him coming up? And so the idea is your 7, 8, 9 guys, shockingly, especially in amateur baseball, get on base more than you think they do because they put less balls in play. And if you put less balls in play, you're either going to strike out or walk. Well, how many amateur baseball players are throwing 3 strikes before they throw 4 balls? Now, there's your dudes who do a lot, but there's also a lot of kids, especially at the Class 1 level, who they're going to throw 4 balls before they throw 3 strikes. And so you realize your 7, 8, 9 guys get on more than you think. So then it's okay. So if those guys are getting on base before, the one hole, but we're going to put our best hitter, our best run creator, as we describe it, a kid who can score a run on his own and with the bat, and we're going to bat him leadoff. So we basically came up with a standard, an expectation that if you're batting 9 hole and there's a kid at first base and there's 1 out, your job is to move the runner over to second with 2 outs because you're setting the table for our best hitter to hit with a runner in scoring position with 2 outs. We would rather you bunt and move the runner over from, first with 1 out than let you swing it. And I saw a video this morning where it talked about there's really not much growth until you can recognize that you're not as good as you think you are. And so I think if you really want to play small ball and get guys to buy into it, you got to get guys to understand, like, I'm not an all-state hitter, and our best chance of winning and competing at the highest level is, like, I have to be able to bunt. I have to be able to give my, like, who's our best player and how do we set the table for him to do the most damage. Um, we would bunt at practice, but then we'd get into games and we wouldn't bunt as well as I'd want us to. So then you got to come up with, okay, how do I make bunting harder at practice? And so we came up with some different things. So in basketball, I was at basketball practice and I noticed that they do a drill called Maryland shooting, is what they called it. And basically, you got to make X amount of layups, X amount of baseline shots, X amount of jump shots from the elbow, X amount of 3-pointers, and then you got to hit a half court shot to win it. So like, okay, well, why don't we do that for bunting and have there be a time frame where we got to get X amount of bunts down? Sack bunt to first, sack bunt to third, bait, bunt hit, drag bunt, push bunt, squeeze, and we got to get down a certain amount of time. And so we started doing stuff like that. We call it bunt relays, and you'll get 40 bunts down in like 6 minutes. You give kids one bat, so you all got to share the same bat. Figure out how to get the bunt down in between the cones, and let's go. We would script practice. So this is different. HBO Max shows Hard Knocks. And what we would do at football practice, what they do is they script like the offense and the defensive plays to go against each other at practice. And so we would just script our offense like, okay, have the lineup down, have a script written out, and we would play small ball off of that based off of different things that we could call from third base or reads that we would have from bunting, and play that out so kids were pretty comfortable with, like, okay, if I'm up and this is the situation, this is what we would do. And then we played like a live game we call Red Zone. And the reason we call it Red Zone is that in football, if you're inside the 20, it's called the Red Zone, and like the better teams score more often inside the 20. And so we refer to it in baseball, a runner at second with 2 outs or a runner at third with less than 2 outs. That's the red zone. So we have to have a high percentage of efficiency of scoring those runs, because that's what good offenses in football do. That's what good offenses in baseball do. They score runners from third with less than 2. They score runners from second with 2. And so we play a game where if you got to third base, it's an automatic dead ball. The next batter has to squeeze you in. And if he doesn't get the squeeze down, the run doesn't count. So you have to execute the squeeze. And you will not realize how much pressure there is when you're competing to get, like, you're inter squatting. And if you don't get the squeeze down, your team doesn't score a run. And so all of a sudden there's pressurized bunting, because anybody can do it when there's no pressure. It's easy. Just boop, 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 boop. When all of a sudden that's the winning run, or that run matters, and kids' heartbeat a little bit more. It's a lot of pressure. So how do you emulate that in practice? Those are some of the ways that we would incorporate bunting at practice and in games, trying to design a lineup and come up with, like, this situation you're bunting because we want this kid to hit regardless of how many outs there are with runners in scoring position. And then we would try to create pressurized situations in practice so that when they get into a game, they've at least had some heartbeat, some stress when they've tried to bunt.
And those bunts would be off the machine. Is that correct?
Yes, always with velo. Always with velo.
Yeah,
Make it firm.
I feel like we as coaches sometimes, we get upset when our guys don't get bunts down, but it's on us because we don't work on it enough and we don't work on it effectively enough.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
we believe bunting's easy, right? Oh, bunting's easy. Everybody can get a bunt down. Okay, is bunting easier than hitting? Probably so for most, right? But bunting is a
100%.
very hard thing. It's a very hard thing to do, and it's even harder, like you said, when it's a pressure situation. It's a lot
Let
easier
me
to stand there while coaches when you batting practice and just work on butting it to the cones, right? It's much tougher when there's runners on base and there's defense and there's a machine hurling at you, and like you said, the heartbeat's going to really execute that. So you've got to practice it. I'm 100% on board.
teams that execute the most offensively, there's two teams that score the most. Teams that can just swing it, and very unlikely you're just going to have a roster that can just swing it 1 through 9. So then it's who executes more. How do you get your team to execute better? I think part of it is you have to teach it really well so they understand the ins and outs of what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. But also, if you look at like the military, which I'm not saying amateur baseball is like the military, but what they do is try to create really stressful environments so that when it's really stressful, you rise to the level that you've trained to. And so how do we make things at practice really stressful like it's a game? We say practice like a game, but at the end of the day, like, it's really hard to make practice like a game, to make it that same level of stress of if you don't win, you're letting everybody down. I don't know if running really does that. I think competing against one another and having your teammate be like, get the bleeping bunt down, that makes a difference. Also, just creates a much more competitive environment. Get this bunt down, your team doesn't score this round.
Absolutely. Let's go back a little bit to the lineup construction because I hit my best hitter leadoff most of the time at Webster when I was there. Yes, it was 7, 8, 9 we'd get on for him, but my thought also was a run's the same as an RBI. Runs created is a stat that we used a lot via our iScore app, and we would usually put our best runs created guy at the top of the order. Um, my question to you, having that 9-hole guy really focus on getting that 8-hole or that 7 or that 6-hole to second with 2 outs for your best hitter at the top. Would you run a coach that was sharp and would just walk him and pitch to the 2-hole because your 1 was that much better? Or did you ever come into a situation like that?
No, I think but again, like that's dangerous, right? Like how many coaches are willing to, the 2-hole ain't much worse. Like that's gambling, right? Like you're
It may
gambling that
be
you're making.
the
I
spin
love that
buzz.
stuff.
It's worse.
It's true, right? So what was really funny is with 2 outs and there's nobody on, or if there was ever 2 outs, the sole job is you have to flip the lineup. Where like,
Yeah.
and we haven't even gotten into this, but nothing drives me more crazy than when kids would get out of the way of a ball, especially in Class 1 when it's like 74 miles an hour. Like no one's broken any bone from 74-mile-an-hour fastball. So at some point I just got so irritated. I'm like, we can't swing well enough, and we're getting out of the way of pitches. We're gonna start practice every day wearing pitches. And like last year, I don't know how to put stuff up on Misha, so I have no idea. But we wore 75 pitches in 21 games, which I believe is the state record for most per game by a lot. But we hit like 240 last year as a team and went 13-8. I don't even think we had a kid hit over 300. But we wore 75 pitches, which you had 75 hits to your lineup. What are you hitting then? You're hitting about 400. So we would practice wearing pitches, and it got to the point we would chart it. Could you have worn a pitch? Did you wear the pitch? And those are the things we started charting during games, things that we thought mattered. Did you attack the fastball for the first pitch in the zone, or did you take it? And then did you wear a pitch? Could you have worn a pitch? Did you wear a pitch? And those are the things we did at practice. We would practice wearing pitches every day off the machine. Not insanely fast, but firm enough to where it was like I don't enjoy getting hit by the ball.
Did you have certain hitters that were just at first like I don't want to get hit. I don't want to do this. I'm afraid of getting hit. And then by the end, did they kind of wear it as a badge of honor? I mean,
Oh,
everyone's
you
different,
bet.
right? Obviously the kids you have, in that community are water drink from the water hose, moving hay
Yes.
bales. They're the country
Yes.
strong type. Probably don't mind if a 5-ounce ball hits them in the thigh, right? But there are certain kids out there that are just a little bit afraid of getting hit. And I just wonder, have you ever come across one of those where you almost have to really, really kind of reinforce, like, buddy, this is our opportunity here. Like, this is our offensive philosophy, whether you like it or not.
Thankfully, by the time that we started it, I'd been at where I work at community for long enough that where like I think they kind of understood like we need to be able to do this, so I didn't. I could
Yeah,
imagine maybe in years past or maybe in summer ball trying to do that, and kids would be like, "No thanks." But I'll tell you what, I'll be all over a kid at third base if he jumps out, especially with like base loaded and 2 outs. Like you just cost us a run. Are we trying to win or like the most irritating point is like it's 1,000%. It's 100% you're getting on base and driving in a run, or we could let you swing it, which is at best like a 35% clip that you're going to get a hit, or it's 100% clip you wear the pitch. I don't like we're playing to win. I don't understand.
yeah. No, it's brilliant. I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad we segued into it because I know that was a huge part of your offensive philosophy and the identity
Okay.
of your was we're gonna celebrate things that other people might not celebrate. And that was something Matt Deggs was big on when he was coaching at UL, and they were setting all those offensive records. He was putting guys into buckets. He had ball players. He had hitters. He had runners. He had bombers, and he was trying to give his hitters their own identity, and then they were to own that identity. And I think that's similar to what you're doing there. Is you're not everybody's a hitter, not everybody's a bomber, not everybody's a runner, right? But they can bring value to a lineup if they know their job, they know their role, and they execute their role. Um,
Yes.
and that's something that's kind of always stuck with me, and why I loved. his offensive philosophy, and I think why UL scored as many runs as they did. I think he was explaining there were two games where they got two hit and they won both games, and both were a bunt base hit and a solo bomb. And that just kind of encompasses, right? We can win games in so many different ways. We don't just have to slug. We don't have to get 4 hits in an inning. We don't have to get 3 hits in an inning. We can find ways to win without having a lineup, even 3 or 4 hitters in a lineup. We've talked bunting, we've talked hit by pitch. In my opinion, even more important than both of those is base running. And, just curious how you use or how you teach base running for that matter, and how you use that to help generate more runs.
So, and I'll go back a couple pages in the conversation. So we have these things that everyone does, right? It's called indies for infield and outfield, right? So my question is why don't we have the everydays, if some people call it, why don't we have team everydays? What are things as a team we need to do every single day in order to increase our chance of being successful? So we would start practice every day. We would do our hit by pitches, and it'd be like we have to do it in so much time. They get one bat, they got to stand in a spot, we're shooting the machine. So the important part of wearing pitches is you have to sometimes learn how to get in the way of a pitch intentionally. And that's huge. So we would shoot the machine, and kids would just have to get in the box, one bat, wear the pitch, sprint to first, and we couldn't shoot the next ball until the kid before it hit first base. And we had to make it in so much time. If otherwise, we did it again. So from there, we'd go to our bunt relays. We got 2 machines shooting at home and second. We got to get all these bunts down in X amount of time. Then we would go to what we call chasers. And what a chaser is you say there's 2 kids at home plate. This kid's at home plate. Oh, my fingers are backwards on the screen. But you're chasing each other through first base, and you can't get tagged. So my last 2 years, I never taught how to round a base. But if you have someone chasing you, you know what you're going to realize real quick if you don't want to get tagged? How to efficiently round a base, because you're getting chased and you're going to find out I've got to take the best angle possible to get to the next one. And so we do chasers every day. We'd start at home and second, and we would just tag kids up in similar speed. Don't get tagged, because we believe that wearing pitches, being able to execute offensively with bunts, and being able to take an extra 90 feet by rounding a base the best possible way and efficiently as possible was our best ways to be able to score runs, because that takes no skill. Bunting is a skill, but not as much as hitting. Wearing a pitch is not necessarily a skill, and being able to get free 90 feet is a skill, like something that if I teach you, anyone can do it. So from there, right, we did a lot of fly ball reads, because I think especially at the lower levels, how often a ball's hit in the air and not caught. But then if at the base runner, how can you make sure that you are doing everything you can to maximize that opportunity of a ball not being caught? And so originally, like, the rule is, you go like halfway at first base. We made a rule where it's you get off as far as you can and know you can still get back. So the way we would do it is we would shoot a fly ball to our assistant coach, and he would catch it, and he had to try to throw someone out at first base from all 3 fields. And kids would realize, like, wow, I can get off way further than I thought I can. So you'd have kids at second base on a fly ball to left because they were fast enough where they could still get back. And then if the ball was dropped, they can get to third base, rather than going halfway, and you still might get thrown out at second base from XYZ reason. And also, let's say this kid's really fast and this kid's not really fast. Why should they have the same distance off first base? Another thing we did is we stopped teaching leadoffs to an extent. It was basically get off as far as you can and know you can still get back. We see our goal is to try to see a move in the first inning. And from there, how would we practice it? I would stand on the knee at home plate. We'd have multiple lines at first base. And I would just look right at first base with a kid at first base with a glove. And I would just look at him and throw the ball over there from a knee and see how far they can get off and still get back. I'm picking over. How far can you still get off? And so we do things like that. Also, I think you just got to allow kids to get green light and make mistakes at practice and in games. I don't think there's one game that you lose in March or April or early May that deteriorates your season. It's the last game of the season that is what loses you your season, because of the last game. So it's how much are you allowing kids to make mistakes to figure things out? And so we would be very, very, very risky early in the year up until about districts, because I want to see kids to see, like, hey, I could potentially get 2 bases here. Hey, I could take that base on a pass ball. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do that. Hey, I could tag here. Try to take less restrictions and let them just play baseball to an extent. Let them be athletes. Another thing we would do is anytime there was 2 outs, we were in green. Green means go. So with 2 outs, we're in green. We're off the base path unless we're stealing because we want to round the base by being off the base path. And we're automatically thinking 2 bases every time unless you get the stop sign. We went to something called yellow. Yellow means it's kind of like a vault steal. But basically, we would chart looks and see how it measured up to count that pitchers would be in. Like with 1 strike, 0-0, 1-0, 0-2, whatever. And we're trying to see if they have a tendency and how many times they give looks. So instead of going UCLA, we're trying to get jumps off the amount of looks they go to. Because I think every pitcher has a tendency off their looks, their comfortable one. And so basically, we also had a rule if a kid looks 3 times, you go. Because I doubt anyone looks over a 4th time. We had tendencies like if a kid backpicks to second, we're going on the next pitch automatically because no one backpicks to second twice. We would steal third so much with any kid. We could have a kid probably have a tire attached to his legs or his hips and run with it and probably still be able to steal third because we would not give signs from third to steal third. The signs would come from first base. And we've used this in summer and it works a ton too. There is such a disconnect between middle infielders and pitchers and when they like go back to their position and when a pitcher goes home. So if a pitcher is set, right, at some point the middle infielder is going back. And teams don't practice this enough to maximize on this. But there will be a moment before he goes home where the shortstop or second baseman desert and there's no one holding the runner at second. So that is a perfect opportunity to get a great jump. There's no one holding you. They can't pick you off if no one's standing around you. Regardless of who has the ball. If the pitcher has the ball, he can't backpick you because there's no one at second. So then it's how do you communicate that to the runner at second? Because if you verbalize it, then the middle infielder is going to be like, oh, yeah, I got to go cover second. So we would do hand signals from first, and double hands meant no one's holding you. If you can get 2 hard shuffles, go. We would steal third with like kids that had no business stealing any bases because we'd get such great jumps that there was no chance of throwing us out because there was a disconnect between pitchers holding runners and the middle infielders holding the runner. We worked a ton on leadoffs at third because I think that's a hugely underrated thing. If you have a poor leadoff at third and a wild pitch happens, it makes it really difficult to get advantage on the pass ball. But if you do a great job with it, and regardless of the score, regardless of the situation, you're always harping in them and teaching it, it makes it so much easier. If you got feet that are stationary and stuck in the ground and then a pass ball happens and your leadoff is 4 feet off third base, yeah, it's going to be hard to take advantage of a pass ball. But if you do everything right and you've got active feet and you're closing the distance and you're hitting it in stride, you can take home all the time on a pass ball. But so many teams don't. And a kid comes back and goes, oh, man, I didn't get a good read. I didn't this. Why? That's not an excuse. I've never seen big leaguers make that mistake because they're so good at those little details. When to tag, how to tag. We don't verbalize tagging. We just let the kid tag and see it for himself and go. One of the things we started doing with first and thirds is we started doing fake earlies. So what does everyone yell when a kid takes off early in a first and third? Step off, step off. Well, what we would do is we'd a 1-step leadoff, and we would go 5 hard steps in a first and third. So everyone would yell, step off, step off, step off. And our kid would be like a normal leadoff off of first base. And so either the kid would balk, or then you got the first baseman go, never mind. And so then the kid's about to step off, and then he hears never mind. And it just causes chaos. I think one of the things that football and basketball do really well that baseball doesn't is try to dictate the tempo of a game. And I don't think it's talked about enough. How is I as an offense dictate the tempo of the pitcher? So we would intentionally call time, knowing that we were okay with taking a strike in the count, but just trying to disrupt the pitcher's timing. Time, not caring if the umpire granted it to us. It's 1-0, it's 0-0, it's 2, whatever. The situation is trying to throw him off tempo. Maybe he's mowed down the first 2 hitters in the inning. We would intentionally tie our shoe during at-bats or going up to the at-bat because what umpire is not going to allow you to tie your shoe before you take an at-bat? And so, a pitcher would get like a 3-pitch, 2 outs, and then my next kid on deck automatically knew he had to tie both his shoes. And that would slow the game down for a minute and a half, and the pitcher would have to reset, find his rhythm. I think it's hugely underrated, especially at the amateur level, trying to throw off the pitcher's timing, how to do it, to disrupt his – like how the pitchers always say when they're mowing guys down, man, I just found a good rhythm. Okay, well, the job as an offense, our job is to disrupt that. I was talking to Coach McGee down at Willard. He did this thing this summer, and I think it's fascinating. How many times can you fake steal until the team stops caring that you're fake stealing, and then you can just steal second base because no one's paying attention anymore, right? Like, how many times can I fake steal, and then in the sixth inning, my kid actually does steal, and no one says anything or doesn't take it serious, or the catcher doesn't think he's actually stealing because we fake stealed or fake stole 12 times earlier in the game, right? So it's just little things like that of how can you get a free 90 feet with a block because the other team has blind spots. The game of baseball has blind spots that you can manipulate and take advantage of.
All this it's unconventional, right? And I feel like there's a lot of coaches out there they're just more comfortable being conventional. They're comfortable losing conventionally. There's not as much scrutiny when you lose and you're conventional, but when you're unconventional, when you steal third base with 2 outs and you get thrown out, right? You got everybody in the stands say, "Oh, that's a no. You don't steal third base with 2 outs." It's like if I have no offense, I have to steal third base with 2 outs. I might be stealing third base because I want the catcher to throw the ball in the left field. That's the only way I'm going to score. I might be stealing because I need a pass ball to score from third. I can't score from second with the next three guys that are up. So it's little things
Exactly.
like that. You have to think
Well,
outside of the box if you want to be successful. Go ahead.
it
Sorry.
goes it goes back to the video I seen earlier this morning. As soon as you realize you're not as good as you think you are, and it's not like saying that the kid like, hey, you're not very good. It's just getting them to understand that like, hey, we can't go up there and just hit 400 through 5 down the like 1 through 9 down the lineup. So how are we going to create runs? Like, let's
Yep.
come up with creative ways. And more often than not, like, again, as a young coach, I was so like, man, I don't want to do anything that's going to make people think I'm terrible at this. But then as I've gotten
Right.
older and you get to have a little bit of success, like, I really don't care. Like, we're going to do things because we, like, mathematically, you may not understand, but mathematically, it does make sense. I've got a kid hitting 115 up at the plate, and we've got 2 strikes on him. Is he more likely to get a hit with 2 strikes hitting 115, or are we more likely to steal third base? Like, what's greater chance, catch throwing to left field or my kid getting a hit? Well, with 2 strikes, he's probably going to hit about 50. So we have a 5% chance. Or what's the chance a catcher might throw it in the left field? 10. Well, that's double the odds. I'm going to take that chance instead. And if we get thrown out, we played the hand we were dealt, and so what?
Right.
Like shifting in defense. How come more amateur level teams don't shift? Every hitter has tendencies. We just talked about the MLB. Those guys have tendencies. They shift in the MLB. So
because
what makes you a 14 to 18-year-old doesn't have hitting tendencies?
because the moment that pitcher throws that pitch and the shortstop isn't where he thought he should be and they get a hit, he's the first one to say, "Oh man, the shift killed me." It's like, dude, the shift saved you on so many ground balls through the 5-6 hole. You have no idea. Like our shortstop
So
standing five third baseman saved 50 hits this spring. The 2 hits that we gave up because the ball went to where the shortstop should have been, those are the ones that are under scrutiny because once again, conventional wisdom never gets scrutinized. Never.
So here's something. So, we're allowed to have our 3 hours a week or something. And this is something that I had done at Community R6, and we're going to try to do it at Troy. A lot of these things I've done, I don't know if it'll work at somewhere like Troy yet. I think over time, you just got to find where the game's blind spots are and try to take advantage. I don't know if it's a great idea to tell kids like, hey, you got to wear this 95-mile-an-hour fastball off your ribs. Like, I don't know how well that goes over year one. It's a lot different in class one when you're seeing 68 to 74. Like, no one's broken a rib off 68, but someone's definitely broken a rib off 95. But little things like this. So we've started like we've been outside because we got the turf, and so we've done some like scrimmaging ish off the machine. And so what I've done before one of the practices, we went over all the things that we'll do with shift wise. We'll go heavy shift on the lefty, heavy shift on the righty. We'll go something called mesh, which is kids that usually spray it like in the middle of the field. So we're just kind of pinching the field and giving the lines. And so we call a game called phases, where if you've ever played phase 10, you have to conquer that phase or that round before you can move on to the next one. So we do something similar when we go live. This is the situation. Your team has to win it in order to get to the next situation. And whichever team by the end of practice gets through the most situations that they've won, you win the game. So one of the situations was the offense is down whatever amount of runs, but the thing that the defense got was they got to call a shift. You have to call a shift on every batter of the however many we have. And what you realize is that not only do kids hit into the shift, and they're like, wow, that kid hit it exactly where we were playing. But then kids would try to like dictate the pull heavy kids would try to hit it the other way and they just can't very well. And so then they like cap shot like a nothing to first base. And it's like, thank you, tip my cap to that. So I think in order to really get the kids, which is all that matters, the kids to buy into like, this is how we're going to do it. You have to show them at practice, like, how many times have we been beat in this shift? Okay, 0 times in the 15 kids that have hit into it. Okay, so if we go 1 for 16, isn't that worth the odds if we go 14 for or 15 for 16 on it? Well, yeah. Okay. So another thing that we do is at Community R6, we had a kid that was pretty good range wise, but like technically he kind of struggled around the base with just tags and just footwork stuff. And then we had a kid who's really good technically in terms of like the tag and getting the cuts and stuff, but he didn't have as much range. So what we did is we looked at it and said, how many balls really beat us down the line in a baseball game? Coach Wiggins, how many times during the summer do you think a BB down the left or the third base line is like happens?
Whew. I mean, in 40 games, 3 or 4. It just,
So
yeah,
we're gonna play our third baseman to step into dive off third base for the 3 balls that might get hit there. How many balls, Coach Wiggins, get hit through the 5-6 hole?
more than anywhere else on the field.
Correct. So why are we respecting the 3 over the 35 over the weekend? So what we did is we played our third baseman back because originally, like, what's the traditional rule? Step in a dive off third base, even with the bag. We just played him just as deep as our shortstop, and then we played him 6 steps off third base and 6 steps behind third base. And so then that actually became like our shortstop, if that makes sense, because now he has all that room for the backhand and he gets everything glove side because he takes priority because he's going that way. So now he's got more range because we spaced him out. And then in class 1, like even at the class 6 level, I know people are going to bunt for a hit in Francis Howell and Dumo West. They're going to do some stuff. But if like, are they going to bunt? Every team going to bunt 15 times in a row? If we think someone can bunt, if we have our best athlete at third base, we're playing chess. Just even if you slide them up, you're taking it away because you're putting your best athlete there. So now you have to beat us by swinging it, right? It's playing chess. If you put your best athlete at third at the amateur level and you give him the space to have the more range, and then you can also play him front and back to take away the bunt, like to me, that's almost like it's a different way of thinking. But if we can take away your bunt, do what?
You see it happen in softball when I was
Yes.
at Parkway North. We had Riley Smith, who's the center fielder at University of Kentucky for 4 years. Oh, we put her at third base because she was our best athlete. She could take away bunts. She could go get things to the glove side. She wasn't even an infielder. But we're like, we need our best athlete, our quickest, most athletic player to play third base. Whereas most teams would probably put her at shortstop. But third base was so much more effective when it comes to the bunt game.
Correct. And so also if you're taking away the 5-6 hole, like, and so what we realized is that our third baseman started getting more balls than our shortstop. Right? You want to put your best athlete where the more baseballs are going to go, where he's going to have the ball in his hands more. So let's create a situation where he's going to get more baseballs hit to him. Let's give him more space. So a couple of years ago, we had a kid who's actually pitching at William Woods, unorthodox thinking. He got pop priority. He got priority on every ball hit. I don't care where it was. You get priority, right? Like, but that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be pop priority. I would rather have him go after the ball than anyone else in the field. I want him, and then it's not just that, but I want him to have the ball as many times as possible. Why in basketball do we have positionless basketball nowadays? Why now do we have usage rates? Why are we not trying to apply that in a baseball setting? Well, that's not how we did it in 1973. That's great. It's not 1973 anymore. And, Amazon doesn't run the same way it did in 1999, and the internet's different. And I'm in a school building, the school building's different. We have iPads, we have computers, and we're trying to make adjustments and try to make it better. It's you have to try to be as proactive as you can in trying to create a situation where you can be as competitive as you possibly can. And it's finding those shortcuts, the microwavable. How can I make this kid just as good as the other kid in way less time than I get them?
That's great stuff. This has been an awesome introductory baseball 101 for me as host of my first show. Um, couldn't be more just ecstatic and happy to have you on. Just the way you think about the game, the way you approach the game, the out of the box thinking that you have. It's I love it. I admire it. Um, I think you're going to have a lot of success at Troy. I think you're going to have a lot of fun going from the class 1 to the class 6 level where,
It's a lot different.
the talent talent pool's deeper. Yeah, obviously you get to play some heavy hitters, which is always fun. But you will have a better roster and more pieces to work with there. So I think a lot of the strategies and tactics you employed at the lower, the class one will work. We'll be under scrutiny, sure, but who cares, right? We're trying to win, right? We're trying to win. We're trying to put our boys in the best position possible to be successful, and it takes buy-in. It takes buy-in from the kids. It takes buy-in from your staff, and if you can get that, which I'm sure you can, I I think you're gonna have a great career at Troy, and I'm excited to see it.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, if you have any last words, feel free to shout them out. But that's pretty much all she wrote for for episode 1. Joel, thanks for
Go
being an
Trojans.
awesome guest. Trojans. I've got a different
Trojans.
task from class 5 to class 2, so it's going to be a little bit different on.
But things would be more applicable because it'll be more blind spots from the coaching, from the players. We talked off camera before, man. Like, we would intentionally do things to make us look like we have no idea what we're doing, like pulling our third baseman way up in a bunk coverage, and then the kid at second's like, man, I can steal third because there's no one covering third, and then we would just inside move them because we played into like, hey, we're class 1, we have no idea what we're doing, and we would just inside move kids because they thought they could steal third because no one was on third. You're gonna have a ton of fun. You'll probably find more creative things than I came up with.
It'll be interesting. We'll bounce things off each other for sure.
100%.
All right, hey, for YBM and Brian French and all his greatness, this is Dave Wiggins signing off on Baseball 101. Thanks, Joel.
See you.